business registration. You know that in South Africa, you've got to decide what type of entity you want to utilize. Most of us have either closed corporations, or previously closed corporations, but now have companies with limited propriety. Having those businesses registered through the CIPC, making sure then that all of the documentation and details are in order. So if someone wants to find you, they can do so and legitimize your business. What is the difference between a shareholder and a director? Is a director a owner of the business? Is a shareholder the manager of the business? The definition of contracts where one party borrows money or goods from another. This is a credit agreement. And the legal framework is governed mainly by contractual law. Credit agreements are regulated by the National Credit Act, the NCA.
It's such an honor to be part of the MyDough community once again. And as Mtimkhulu said, my name is Bohale Paile. Super excited to be here with you guys today. So I'm putting my camera on just to do an intro so you can all see who I am, but super excited to be getting into such a fantastic topic, something very close to my heart with over 14 years worth of HR experience across various organizations, and personally just being really grounded in the idea and concepts around self-leadership, around leadership as a whole. I think this topic was really something geared towards something that I naturally gravitate towards. And being quite a new founder as well, only 2 years in the making since I've left corporate, a lot of things I've learned along the way, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of insights that I'll be able to share today that are relevant for you as well. So I'm going to try and share my screen before I kickstart the presentation. Ideally, guys, I know that, I'm not going to be able to see hands going up, and Mtimkhulu has already said that he will stop me along the way if there's a burning question. I like to make even online presentations quite engaging, so I will ask questions along the way, and maybe you can type it in the chat in terms of your response. Because I think it's so important that we are kind of engaging along the way. But if that's not something that's possible, then we will move with it, right? We'll move with it. So thank you so much. And I will start sharing just shortly. Okay. So wonderful. Guys, I'm so excited to be with all of you today. I know that you're all in positions where you are juggling 1,000,001 things in your business, whether it be marketing, operations, day-to-day admin, and somehow still trying to grow a team and lead effectively, right? So today, I think our main focus, as I've already said, that part of your business that typically gets overlooked, and yet is something that definitely either makes or breaks your growth is people, right? I think sometimes so much we are focusing on so many other aspects within our business. We're hiring people and just kind of bringing them in because we need a bum and seat. We need someone to handle a specific task, but we are not intentional around how we go about doing that. And that is sometimes the very main thing that slows us down. So this session is all about strong leadership and team management, and directly connects to and helps us actually directly connect back to sustainable growth, because I personally understand the importance that has for our businesses, right? Because a lot of us, our focus is generating revenue, is ensuring productivity just across the board, is ensuring that your business looks fundable, right, to investors as well. And also just ensuring that you've got the right systems in place. Guys, I understand it. There's so many aspects to be thinking about. And these are the things that sometimes deter us from focusing on the people aspect and focusing on leadership as a whole. But before we dive in, just a quick show of hands. How many of you have had to hire someone before, and how many of you have had to have tough conversations with the team member? Okay. A few hands already going up, right? Okay, good. So guys, this is something that all of us have to do at some stage. And so you already know that the people stuff isn't always easy, right? But it's also where the biggest opportunities actually are. So let's start with something foundational, right? And that is understanding the difference between leadership and management and why both are important, especially for you as founders. All right, so let's start with something really important and something that many founders confuse early on, right? The difference between leadership and the difference between management. They're not the same thing, guys. And I think a lot of us get very, very confused with the concept of leadership and management. But you need both in order to build a sustainable business. So you may ask yourself, what is the difference? Leadership, how I see leadership, guys, is really just, it's more around direction, right? You're setting the vision, you're inspiring others, you're aligning values. It's about setting that and inspiring people along the way and ensuring that your team around you is aligned to the goals of the organization and the values of the organization as well. Leadership is a lot more future focused, and it asks the question, where are we going? Why does this matter? So at every point when you're asking yourself, where are we going? Why does this matter? That is the thinking pattern of someone that is portraying leadership. Management, on the other hand, is about execution, right? So this is about how we organize work, how we tackle progress, making sure that the wheels continue to turn. It's about the how and not the why. So to put it simply, leadership is about people and purpose. Management, on the other end, is about process and performance. I'm sure each of you can think of a time in your business where you were so busy managing tasks, orders, admin, that you forgot to lead. You forgot to actually take a step back and guide the bigger picture of the organization that you founded, what it is that you started, right? And why does this matter for founders, right? I think it's so important because I think it's important for us to understand leadership and management, but also to know that as founders, we have to wear both hats. But the leadership mindset is what is crucial for growth. As founders, I think we often find ourselves, getting so stuck in the weeds, getting so stuck in the bookkeeping, the marketing, and you're supposed to actually be the visionary leader, right? But a lot of times, the thing that keeps us back in the admin, keeps us back in the management, is the type of staff we have hired. We continuously going back to double check the work that they've done, to guide them on how to do the work effectively, right? Instead of being in the position where we are leading, inspiring. But here's the truth. If you only manage and never lead, your team loses direction. People don't know where they're going and they won't take ownership. And on the flip side, if you are only ever leading and you don't manage, then nothing really gets done and goals stay as ideas and not results. So we need to be both. But today we're going to lean more into leadership because that's where sustainable growth actually starts, especially when it comes to hiring the right people, which is attracting and retaining talent, building a culture, managing performance, and being seen as fundable by investors as well, right? If you had to choose right now, which do you think you spend most of your time doing between managing or leading? Happy for you to be putting into the comments as well. Where do you think you're spending a lot of your time? Are you managing a lot more tasks or are you spending time in leading, setting the vision, guiding the team? Guys, where are you spending your time? Solo says managing. I know in my business, for the most part, I'm in management mode consistently, right? And I did that because I had people that were just not right for the business in the beginning. Banele saying leadership, Sean leading. Tolu with the set out strategy. Okay, so you're managing, but with the set out strategy. Now was managing, right? Witty saying operations. Suzanne finds herself managing consistently. And that is totally normal. But hopefully by the end of today, guys, you'll walk away with a few leadership tools that will help you free up your headspace, strengthen your team, and definitely start growing faster with less. Now let's ask ourselves, why does leadership matter? Why is it more important that we are leaning more into leadership as opposed to managing? Now that we understand the difference between leading and managing, let's zoom in on why this actually matters for your business. Firstly, leadership attracts the right people. Because when you're clear about your vision and your values, and you don't just hire for the sake of hiring and putting people in seats, you start attracting the right people to the organization. Because strong leadership helps the right people say, I want to be part of that. I love where that business is growing. I want to be part of that vision, right? And it also equally helps the wrong people self-select themselves out, right? So that's what leadership does. It starts attracting the right type of people. Secondly, I think it's so important for us to acknowledge that leadership drives revenue and productivity. Because when you are focused, when you're inspired, when you're aligning, when your team is aligned, they start working smarter, not just harder. When your team understands the why behind what it is you're doing, they stop waiting for instructions and start solving problems. That's how you start growing revenue without burning yourself out. And I think a lot of times the lack of hiring the right people, which is something we're definitely going to be going through in today's session, it moves us away from people that are just sitting there saying, you've just asked me to do this and that's what I've done, right? But once people understand, why do I need you to do this? Where does what you are doing fit into where the organization is going? Then people start working smarter. People start solving problems on their own, right? And ideally, guys, when you're running a small organization, the more effective people are in the organization, the faster you guys are able to scale, and you're able to do so without burning yourself out. And lastly, I completely believe that investors invest in people. It's not always that they're looking at the product that you have, but they're looking at who is behind the product. So if you're thinking about raising money someday, just remember that investors don't only invest in your product or in your service, they invest in the leadership behind the organization. They want to see if you're the kind of person that can build a strong team, if you're the kind of person that can stay focused, and whether you are someone that can lead through uncertainty. I think, within my kind of space at this point in time, I often ask myself, if someone shadowed my business just for a week, what would they say about my leadership style? Would they see vision? Would they see purpose and alignment? Or would they see more chaos, control? Right? These are the things we need to start thinking about as we're understanding the importance of why leadership matters within our organization. So now I want us to really shift into what this all looks like in action. Let's start talking about, how do we build and lead a purpose-driven team, one that actually moves your vision forward every single day. Talk about what this really means in terms of building a purpose-driven team. This is where your leadership really starts to take shape, right? Not just in what you say, but in how your team operates on a day-to-day basis. A purpose-driven team isn't just about having motivational posters or fancy slogans written in the office, but it's really about helping people understand three fundamental things. Why does our business exist? Why does their role matter in the greater scheme of the business? And how do we work together to move something bigger than just the paycheck? We want to be moving in spaces where and hiring the type of people that are not just sitting there because they want to earn a paycheck at the end of the month, but they are there because they understand the purpose and the vision behind where the organization is going and why they play a pivotal role. So one of the first things that's important for us in terms of building a purpose-driven team is being able to define and communicate your vision clearly, right? I think when I think back to my business, I've hired someone recently, and sometimes I find that she's the one that is spurring me on with the vision. She's the one that's having a greater vision for where it is that I'm wanting to go with the organization. And it's because I've hired someone intentionally. I've hired someone that is driven for their own career, their own purpose. And because she knows where it is she's wanting to go, she is driven to ensure that everything that she is doing is moving us in the right direction. Having said that, she is still young, she's ambitious, she's 24 years old, and still so much guiding to do, right? But I think when we get to a point where we are starting to define and communicate our vision clearly, the team starts knowing where the business is going and what are you trying to build in the next 3 years is something that you should be asking yourself. What impact do you want to have or do you want to make for your customers, for your industry, or for your community? And don't keep that vision in your head. Speak it out. Write it. Weave it into conversations consistently. People can't follow a leader if they don't know where you're headed. And I think a lot of leaders, not just people that are running smaller organizations or founders of smaller organizations, but you find this in massive organizations as well, right? I've had the privilege of working for really big organizations, and you find that people battle with exactly this. Where is the team going? What's the future of the department, right? So this is something that's very, very common. And here's a quick gut check. If I stopped your team, any of your team members tomorrow and asked them, what is the vision of this business? Would they all give me the same answer? And I ask this because, at a time where I was the HR executive of one of the organizations, when I joined, that was one of the key questions I started asking random people. Why does this organization exist? Where are we going? And it's fascinating to hear that people just don't know. They're there because they just in a role. They're there because they need a paycheck. They're there because they need a job, right? So these are the things that start playing in my mind even now as I'm a founder. And I think definitely something you should be asking yourself as well, right? And if your team members don't know, don't worry about it, because this is where leadership becomes a game changer. Once we start shifting into leadership, we really start changing that narrative. Secondly, establishing core values that actually drive behavior. Your core values are non-negotiable, guys. The way that you expect people to behave and show up at work is not just about buzzwords around like you need to be excellent, you need to strive for greater, you need to be innovative. But it's about getting real and specific about certain behaviors that you are wanting them to emulate, you are wanting them to do, right? And I think a lot of times as leaders, we need to be cognizant that, as we set values, as we set behaviors that we want them to do, let us be the ones demonstrating that consistently. There's no point being a leader and saying, I want you to do A, B, C, D, pitch up in this particular way, and yet we are not leading by example, right? We're not just there to set rules, we're there to set the tone through our personal behavior as well. So, for example, one of the values that you may be thinking about is own your work. What does this mean? It means if something goes wrong, we take responsibility. And we are demonstrating that on a day-to-day basis. Another kind of behavior that you could be implementing into your organization is we solve, we don't just sit. Right? Are we solution orientated? Is that how you want your business to operate? Is that what you want your staff to continuously be thinking about? Meaning that we don't wait for someone else to fix it. We take the initiative. I wonder if any of you at this point in time have values that are written down. even if it's informally, right? Because these are the kinds of things that we need to be going back today and thinking about in terms of, do my staff, do the people that I hire know what is valuable, know the behaviors that are important for us as an organization. Lastly, I think it's so important for us to connect daily work to the bigger purpose. This one for me is really powerful because I think, when you help your team see how their day-to-day tasks connect to the bigger picture, it's easy to get stuck in the weeds and answer emails and fix orders and send invoices. But when people start understanding their role and how it contributes to customer impact, to revenue, then they start working differently. Let's say someone in your team handles deliveries. You could be saying to them, you just drop off the products, right? Or alternatively, you could be saying, you're the final brand touch point. How you deliver affects how customers feel, affects whether we get repeat business from the same customer, right? Once you phrase the work that they do in a way that shows the connection to the bigger purpose, then that enables them to really start understanding the purpose behind what it is they're doing. It's a small shift, but it has big, big results. And that's purpose in action. So when your vision is clear, when your values are lived, and when the team understands the why behind their work, you get buy-in automatically, right? You get ownership. And most importantly, you start pulling your team forward and you start seeing them push the business with you. Back to the example I have about, one of the team members that I've just hired. And I think if those of you that haven't read the book by Simon Sinek, Start With Why, this is really such a great, great book to really understand how to unpack the why behind your business and how that automatically starts being a motivator for the team. Because Simon says people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, right? It's not about what you do, but why you do it. Now let's go one level deeper and let's start talking about hiring smart and bringing the right people into that purpose-driven culture. Okay, perfect. Perfect. So let's speak about hiring smart, recruiting the right people. Oof. This is something that is at the core of what I love to do. And yet I made the very mistakes as I started my business, right? So let's talk about how to hire smart, because hiring is one of those most powerful leadership tools that you can possess. Every single person that you bring in will either grow your business or slow it down. And in small teams, one bad hire, guys, that's all it takes. One bad hire can shake the whole foundation, right? So hiring can't be rushed or based on gut alone. We need to be thinking about this. I think it's so easy sometimes to hire based on friends, referral, family. I've done all of that. And I've seen how that has taken me steps back in my business. It has stagnated my business, right? So the importance of hiring smart guys becomes something that becomes so crucial when you are trying to scale your business. Every single person you bring in, like I said, is either going to grow your business or slow it down. So one of the things that I've learned to do is hiring for attitude and alignment, not just skills. Because skills are important, but those are things that can be taught, especially if it's something that you are capable of doing. I completely understand that there are other technical specialities and other technical roles that are not something that you can do, and you do need a specialist that has the skill set in that, right? But I also think that it's much harder to teach attitude than it is to teach skills. Things like how someone responds under pressure, you can't teach that. Whether they take initiative or not, you can't teach that kind of thing. Whether they take ownership or continue making excuses is a result of attitude. And you want people whose mindset fits your values, people who show up with energy, people who show up and take responsibility and care about the greater mission. I don't know how many of you have tried hiring someone in the past just because they were available, referred, or just family. Someone in the family needed a job, and because they know that you've started up something, they come to you begging and crying for an opportunity to work with you, right? And because it's family, what do we do? Oh, shame, man. I need to help them, man. My poor cousin, my poor this, my poor that. I've done that. I hired my sister thinking, oh, perfect match, right? She's going to help me. She understands my vision. She understands why I built this thing. 3 months in, this is not for me. It's not what I thought I wanted to do. And, it's so high pressure and there's so much to do. And I was just like, my goodness. Never says I have it. It didn't end well, right? And I think that's where we fall. Those are some of the pitfalls, right, that we get into because we are not thinking about where this person is going and how does it fit into the greater mission, right? So I'm sure all of you guys have been there. But from today, I want us to shift our mindset from just filling seats to building a team that grows the business. One of the ways to do this, and something that really helped me get, the assistant that I currently have in my organization, is I use a structured interview process. Guys, don't just wing it when you're trying to hire someone. Prepare questions ahead of time. Ask every candidate the exact same set of questions so that you are able to compare fairly. Use some level of a scorecard, even if it's just a checklist. And before you interview, you ask yourself, what's the important things that I'm looking for from an attitude perspective, from a capability perspective, from a skill set perspective, from a vision perspective? Asking the person, where are you going in your career, is a game changer on its own. Because where they are going in their career will tell you how self-driven they are. If they don't know and all they're doing is trying to get a job, that will tell you that they are going to be a bum in seat waiting for a paycheck. So the sooner you can start putting together a checklist where you are able to rate how they align to your values, how they align to the vision of your organization, how they align from key attributes from an attitude perspective that are going to be important to you. And what are those must-have skill sets that are non-negotiable for the role that you're hiring for? This is what's going to help you stay objective, especially when hiring someone you like personally, right? So remember, being nice doesn't mean they're a right fit for your role. And if you've burnt yourself before by hiring the wrong people, learn from those mistakes. Ask yourself, why did that go wrong? How did I contribute to that going wrong? Because sometimes, guys, especially when you're starting out, sometimes why people leave can be because you don't have a vision. You don't know where you're going. I remember when I started, I was all over the place. My mind was everywhere. I didn't know which way I was going. What did I want to refer to? What are the businesses or what are the products or services that I wanted to hone in on? So before you know it, this is the direction. Oh no, I've got another idea. What about we go here? What about we go there? Before you know it, the people you've hired are lost, directionless, feel like you are just pulling them in every direction possible, right? So those become the key things. Think about the people that have left. What was it? Was it timing? Was it my leadership style? What can I learn from their personality and how I hired them to not make the same mistake again, right? Lastly, don't hire in panic mode. And you don't just hire from your network, right? We've all felt the pressure. You know you need help right now. So what do you end up doing? You just grab the first person, the first cousin, the first neighbor, the first WhatsApp referral that you get. But hiring under pressure leads to misalignment. So learn to take your time, even if that means filling the gap with a temp or a freelancer while you search properly. Every new hire is a long-term investment. Let's remember that all the time. So even now, as I've hired this particular person that I absolutely love, she was hired on a 6-month contract. Why? I wanted the opportunity to test her out, test the alignment with me, test the alignment with the organization, and also test her performance. Because sometimes people can sell you a story when you're interviewing them. They can tell you all the right things. But by the time they come in, the story you were told and the performance don't match up, right? So ensure that that is the direction that you are always thinking about, guys, because it becomes absolutely important. So smart hiring is one of the most sustainable business practices that you can master because it leads to less drama, more accountability, and a team that can scale with you becomes important, not just a team that can survive the next few months with you, right? We all understand the setback that comes with having to rehire again. And we don't want to be going through that. Okay, so just moving on to now that you've hired the right people, how are we continuing to build and shape culture in our organization, right? Thank you, Mtimkulu. Right, so how are we continuing? The next challenge that comes after hiring people is actually thinking about how do you shape the culture, right? Where those great people that you've now hired through a proper structured process where they can thrive. Because even if you hire the right people, they won't thrive unless the culture supports them. Culture isn't just a fancy or formal word, guys. It's not about having bean bags and pizzas on Friday and making it feel cool. But it's about how does your team behave even when you're not in the room? It's shaped by what you reward, what you allow, what you ignore. That's what shapes culture, right? So one of the big things that become important in starting to shape culture is setting clear expectations from day one. One of the biggest leadership mistakes is assuming people know what's expected of them. They don't, guys. When you onboard someone, you need to be clear with them around how we communicate here looks like X. What does good work look like? What are the deal breakers? People coming into your organization need to know those basic fundamental things because when you get clear from the beginning, you avoid a lot of future confusion, frustration, and unspoken tension. Secondly, it's so important for you to learn to reinforce positive behavior and do it publicly. People need to see what great looks like. So when someone steps up, takes initiative, or lives out their values, call it out. Right? Do it in meetings. Do it on your WhatsApp groups. Do it in front of the team. Because that positive recognition doesn't cost you a cent, guys. It's not pizza every Friday. The positive recognition is what shapes your culture. People will repeat what gets noticed. And so if you want them to repeat positive behavior, make sure that you are reinforcing it and doing it loud. A lot of times, because we're so stuck in the weeds, we don't take the time to actually give someone positive feedback. We're very quick to jump on negative feedback. You haven't done this. You're supposed to have done this by this time. Where is this thing? And then when they are on top of things, when they are taking initiative, now all of a sudden it's expected. Now we're not saying thank you so much. I appreciate that you took the initiative there. It really helps free up my mind space when I know that you are here with me because you add value in this and that way. I really appreciate it, right? So if you were to think back, when was the last time you gave someone positive feedback for something they did well? And not just for them fixing mistakes, something they actually did well, something that you can say they took initiative and you can see they went the extra mile. And if it's been a while, guys, that's a great culture lever to pull this week, right? So let's make sure we're reinforcing positive behaviors. The other thing that becomes really important is when you do see negative behavior, learn to address it early. Address your issues early. Culture isn't just about good vibes, everyone being in a positive mindset. It's also about having the courage to deal with problems when they arise. If someone's always late, if someone's missing deadlines, if someone is bringing negativity, don't wait for 6 months to say something, because the longer you wait, the more you signal to them that this behavior is okay. Just 2 days ago, this very brilliant administrator that I'm telling you guys about, assistant that I'm telling you about, came with very low energy. At that time, I'm with a massive client and I have to be on my A game. She is low, down in the dumps, moping around, hasn't communicated to me what's wrong. When I'm asking her to do things, somewhat like sighing, rolling her eyes. Guys, I didn't wait until the next day. As I finished the workshop I was running, and we went outside and we debriefed. After debriefing, I was like, what is going on? What do you mean? I'm fine. I'm like, you are not fine. When this happened, when I asked you to do this, this is how you behaved. When I asked you to do that, that is how you behaved. That is not the person that I know. That is not the person I hired, right? So if someone is missing deadlines, if someone's not bringing the right level of energy, don't wait to address it. Addressing things early, yet calmly and directly, protects the rest of your team, but also reinforces the standard that you expect them to behave on. So here's the bottom line, guys. You're shaping culture every day, whether you realize it or not. And the question is, are you shaping it intentionally? That's what you need to be asking yourself today. So when you're clear, consistent, and courageous in how you lead your people, you create a culture that delivers, even when you're not in the room, right? So those are some of the takeaways that I want you to think about in terms of building and shaping culture in your particular organization. And next, we're going to build on this by looking at something that stresses out a lot of founders. And that's how to manage performance. And what do we do when things just go off track, right? A lot of us are not great at managing performance, guys. Let's be honest. Because it's one of those things that's just a sensitive topic. You don't want to do too much of it. You don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. But the importance of doing it well becomes a game changer, right? So now let's look at performance management. Yes.
Before you get into the next part, I saw Dumisang's hand. Dumisang, I think you can ask your question. I think it was with regards to the previous slide.
Yes, actually, Bohale, I wanted to ask, I know you said you hired your sister and it didn't work. The question I have is, how did you correct the, I'm not going to say mistake, but how did you hire better after just hiring your sister? What did you do differently?
What I did differently was to have a structured interview process. So instead of my sister's available, just finished varsity, available to work, come help me, I put together an ad for the role that I was looking for. I put together a job description for the role that I was looking for. I advertised the role on social media, set a date as to when application date is closing. Once I started receiving applications, I then went through the applications, screened them, shortlisted, interviewed. My interviews were structured. My interview questions were structured. And then the final 2 people, the top 2 people out of the entire process, I then still gave them a task. So I gave them a scenario, I gave them something, and I said, please come back and present back how you would do this particular task based on what I know I need the person to do. And so the final interview was me and the individual, and they were now presenting back their solution to a problem I had given them. And it's a problem I had in my business. And there was where I then was able to test the capability and the skill set that they say they have. I want to see it in action I want to see the thought process that's gone into that as well. And that's how I then ended up hiring the lady that I currently have.
Great, thank you.
Such a pleasure. So just coming back, sorry guys, I see that it's 23 minutes past 7. I am going to try and go through the next 2 or 3 slides that are left quite swiftly, so that we are leaving a little bit of time just for questions at the end if there are any additional, and apologies that we possibly running a little bit over than 7:30. Yes. So just looking at performance management, I know that it can sound like HR work, right? HR speak. And it's so funny because a lot of leaders, even in big organizations, as soon as you say performance management, they look at HR. I'm like, your team, your people, right? To manage. We are here to help you. We are here to guide you. But it is your responsibility as a leader to ensure that you are managing your people. Because in reality, it's not just about helping your people do, it's just about, managing performance is really more about helping your people do their best work and doing it consistently. But the trick here that I found, especially over my years of being in HR, is that when people are clear on what's expected and they get regular feedback, they perform better because it reduces the stress for you and it helps them grow, right? So some of the simple ways in which you can start managing performance as an ongoing thing is firstly, ensuring that you know what success looks like we've said, but that you are also setting up simple weekly check-ins with some of your team members, right? I don't know how many of you do regular one-on-one check-ins with your team right now, but if you're not doing this, this is a habit that can change everything. You don't need a fancy HR system to do it. You just simply need a weekly or bi-weekly check-in with each person. And even if it's a quick 15-minute, 30-minute session, what you're trying to ascertain in here is by asking them, what's going well? What's blocking you and how can I help you? What are your key focal areas this week, right? That's helping them stay aligned. It's helping you anticipate things that could potentially go wrong, but it's also helping them know that they need to be on top of things, because when they have the one-on-one, they need to be able to report back on where it is that they are and how they are moving through the work that they have to do and how they are accountable for the work that they have to do. So this keeps communication open. It also starts building trust, and it helps you catch issues early before they become a crisis, right? And in terms of tracking performance, guys, learning to track 2 or 3 really clear measures per role is what's going to help you, right? Every person on your team should know, what does success look like in my role? And don't overcomplicate it. You do not need a long list of KPIs, right? You just need something that is a simple measure. So for instance, if you've got someone that's in sales, say for instance, or that's a sales assistant, you might then communicate to them that you are wanting them to consistently track the number of leads followed up, the number of deals closed. Those are 2 metrics that you are tracking them on. If someone is managing your store or managing product, one of the metrics you could be asking them about or making sure you're tracking is customer satisfaction, stock accuracy, right? If you're hiring a content creator, your social media manager, you could be asking them, how many posts were published? What is the engagement rate? So with the person that I currently have who's helping me with my social media as well, at the end of every month, I'm asking her to present back. What's worked? What hasn't worked? What is the engagement rate looking like? Why do you think it's looking that way? What can we be shifting right now to ensure that it is moving in the right direction? And she pulls those stats in order to present on a monthly basis, because those are her targets. That's what she's getting paid for. So by choosing 2 or 3 clear trackable indicators, you're not just managing people by emotion, but you are managing based on data, right? And one of the key ways that I believe when you are having a feedback session with someone, giving feedback can sometimes just feel really, really awkward, especially when it's negative feedback. But it doesn't have to be that confrontational, guys. I think it's quite simple in order to making sure that you are having a constructive conversation with someone, right? Because it's really just about focusing more on the behavior of the person than the person itself. And there's an SBI model that I wanted to make known to you guys today. What SBI really stands for is situation, behavior, impact. If you think about, I want to have a conversation with someone because of this negative thing that's happened, or they haven't met this particular goal, think about what was the situation in which this particular thing happened, what was the behavior that I observed, and also what was the impact of it, right? So situation is yesterday during a customer call, da 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 da. Behavior becomes you interrupted the client a few times, right? So you've given them the situation, you've called out the behavior. Now the impact is this made us seem unprofessional and may affect the sale, right? So you're not saying, I don't like the way that you did A, B, C, D. No, no. Yesterday, this is what happened. This is what you did. This is the impact of that. This keeps feedback factual, respectful, and useful, right? So when you're starting to handle difficult conversations, you have to prepare specific examples and outcomes that you are wanting to discuss. And you absolutely need to leave space for the other person to respond or explain, right? But it takes doing this with a level of clarity. Okay, so performance management doesn't need to be something that's complicated. It needs to just be consistent, because when your team knows what's expected and how they're doing, they're able to rise to the challenge as well. So I want to quickly just go through some systems and tools that I think become important, in running the business smoothly when you're not in the room. A lot of founders think systems are for big companies, right? But the truth is, the earlier you start using simple systems, and system doesn't mean an entire operation, right? It doesn't mean an entire system that costs you a lot of money. The earlier you start using simple systems and strategies, the easier it is to scale without chaos. One of the first ones that you need to be thinking about is task management. How is it that you guys are managing your tasks? And even if you're starting with something light, whether it's, Asana, there's Trello, or even if it's just a shared Google sheet, having one place where you're tracking who's doing what by when will help you, your team, and yourself stay aligned, because this reduces follow-ups, it reduces the stress, it reduces the constant level of accountability that you have to be chasing up on, and yet it keeps each person accountable because they can quickly go into the system and know where they are and what's expected of them, right? Also, having regular team check-ins and role clarity documents. I spoke about this a bit earlier. So scheduling your team check-ins becomes a system that is important for you to have regularly, right? But also creating a simple role clarity document, just a one-pager which outlines what the person is responsible for. It makes delegation easier. It avoids duplication of roles, and it also builds confidence. The person knows what's expected of them. And lastly, learning to document basic processes, guys. Whether it's hiring process, your onboarding process, compliance related processes, as your team grows, take 30 minutes to just write down basic steps for the things like hiring, like onboarding, like how we onboard a new team member, or how we handle HR basics or leave or contracts. Have it documented somewhere, guys. It doesn't need to be this massive manual. Just start documenting what you're already doing. This becomes your foundation for growth, and especially when applying for funding or when you're hiring people, it allows for a level of consistency. So your tools don't need to be things that are fancy, they just have to work. And when you combine systems and processes with strong leadership, then your team becomes more self-managing and your business becomes more fundable and scalable. So lastly, just in closing, guys, bringing it all together. Today, we've talked about leadership in a way that's practical, that's grounded in the realities as founders. Whether you're managing a team of 10 people, 2 people, 1 person, or just starting to build one, the same principles apply, right? So understanding that leading with vision, not with tasks, because leadership drives growth. Don't just manage the task, lead with clarity, with purpose, with vision. People follow people, not spreadsheets, right? Hiring with intention and building culture. Intention is the word that I want us to leave with today. Taking your time to find the right person is a game changer. And not just that, once they're in, how are you then shaping the culture through clear values, expectations, and daily behaviors, right? Then we spoke about communicating clearly and often. Where does this come in? Performance. Performance needs structure. So having your weekly check-ins, having those 2 or 3 measurable things, and learning to have honest conversations. Those are the things that will take you further than just putting together an HR policy, guys. Because an HR policy gets put together and shoved somewhere on the cloud. But consistent check-ins, consistent conversation, consistent feedback, that is what drives daily behavior. And lastly, create small systems for big growth, because systems make things sustainable. So using tools, using documents, using processes, basic processes to reduce the stress. And by reducing stress, it's going to improve team flow between yourself and your team. And it's going to show investors that your business is built to last. So remember that building a great team doesn't require perfection. It requires consistency. And you don't have to do everything at once. Start small and just keep improving. That's all that you need to be doing. The book that I have here on this slide was actually recommended to me. I haven't read it as yet, but it was recommended to me, and I'm personally planning to read it at some stage. It's called The Hard Thing About Hard Things, right? And it's known for being quite a brutally honest guide to the realities of leading a business, especially when things get tough. So from what I've heard, it doesn't over fluffy advice. Instead, it really just gives real strategies and mindset shifts for leading teams, making hard calls, and really just staying relevant. Those are all the things that we've touched on today. So thank you so much, guys, for your time. I really hope that this was valuable for you. I really hope that this was something that really got you thinking about some of the things that are working, not working in your current space. And hopefully there are 1 or 2 things that you are going to change as of tomorrow, or that you're going to start implementing as of tomorrow, to really help you start shifting the needle and becoming a sustainable organization. Thank you so much, Mtimkulu.
Thank you so much, Buhlali. That was really, really amazing. I picked up a lot of things myself, so thank you so much for that. I do have time for, I think, 3 questions max. So, Vusi, I saw your hand go up first, so maybe we'll start with you. Then we'll go to Cian, and then there's the question in the chat that I will read out. So, Vusi, you can go first. Vusi, you are on mute.
Yeah, man. Yes. Thank you so much, Tim Kulu. Thank you so much for the presentation as well. Indeed, it is a practical eye opener, and in fact, a lot that has been unpacked. It's some of the nightmares that we go through on our day-to-day entrepreneurial exercise.
Yep.
My question is relative to a point of. We try our level best to avoid nepotism and comfort zone of maybe individuals or maybe people closer to us.
Vusi,
Then feel that, but then unfortunately, how then do you secure a character of saying out of the millions of people out there, you then fine tune to then find into a space of Uguti, you're willing to invest in giving this one an opportunity to play along the vision that you're having. I hope I'm making sense.
Sorry, Vusi, just
Buhlali?
really struggling to hear you because of the background is quite noisy. So I didn't quite get what the question was. You spoke about nepotism. You spoke about how do you start identifying the right individuals that you're willing to bet on in terms of giving them the opportunity. But what is the question?
Okay, the question. Okay, Kikupa. Okay.
Okay, Vusi, maybe if you don't mind,
Choosing nepotism.
can you type it in
Maybe
the
type
chat?
it in.
Yeah, because we're losing you a bit.
yeah,
So please type it in the chat.
Let me try. Let me try typing here. Yes.
All right.
Thank you
I
so
think
much. Yes. I'll try typing it in the chat. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. While you type that in the chat, Sian, you can go with your question.
Hi, Buhlali. Thank you very much for the wonderful deliberation. This was very much insightful. Much is appreciated from my side, and also thank you, MyDough, for organizing such a wonderful workshop. I think mine, it's not necessarily a question, but initially it was a question because I needed to know how do I get hold of you? But I see that you've already answered that by giving us information. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you've already actually went a step ahead. Thank you very much for that. But maybe if I may just force myself to ask a question, when I look at this, you said something about SBI, and you said it's, I think when you defined it, you said it's situation, behavior, impact. I think from my side, what I've decided to do is to formulate a template of some sort. And in this case, I will be circulating it to my team. It will be on a case to case basis, and we will actually just record it, and from time to time review, just to see if there's adequate feedback that speaks to the change that we would want to see. You just opened my eyes with regard to the SBI. I didn't have a document that speaks to the review of all the policies that we have. I think I can actually use the SBI for almost all policies that we have, be it HR policy, be it financial management, and the code of conduct as well. This is a very insightful information that you shared. Thank you very much for saying that.
Only a pleasure. Only a pleasure. So also remember the SBI framework that I shared, or the model that I shared, was primarily in terms of helping us also guide how we go about delivering feedback in order to really help us focus a lot more on facts as opposed to making it sound personal and making people feel attacked, right? So SBI was also just about how are we articulating what it is that we are trying to communicate as a way of measuring feedback or delivering negative feedback or constructive feedback. Let me not say negative, constructive feedback, and situation, behavior, impact becomes the way that helps you start formulating what it is you are saying, so that the person hopefully does not respond in a defensive way, but that they are able to understand the impact of a particular behavior, and hopefully it inspires them to then behave differently as well. So I'm very happy to hear that you found that useful, and hopefully it's something that you start demonstrating as well, yes, as a leader in the business.
Definitely. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you, Buhlali, and thank you, Sian, for the question and the comments. I'm going to take one more question. I see Musa has their hand up. Musa, you can go. Musa, you're on mute. All right. I guess while Musa figures out the mic, there was a question earlier from Dolo, asking, when systems and tools aren't followed, how do you motivate or ensure that they are followed?
I think that one goes back to what we spoke about around setting expectations quite early. That works mostly if you are hiring someone new into the business. You get the opportunity to set the tone of how you want people to follow processes, systems, and the like. If you're already in a situation where people have been doing their own thing for some time and haven't been following processes and systems, then I think it's important for you to be able to pull the team together and realign on how it is we are going to work. And once you start realigning on saying, guys, these are the systems that we are going to use going forward. These are the processes that we are going to follow. This is how things are going to be done. When you start stepping out of this particular process and system, that becomes an issue. That becomes a performance issue, right? So you need to be able, when people are stepping out of systems and processes, you need to be able to call it early. Remember, I said that at a certain stage. The earlier you're able to say, where's this thing? Why did I not see it on this particular spreadsheet? I need you to update here. If you're not updating here, it becomes a problem, right? Remember, we've had this conversation. The next time it happens, you can say to them again, Vusi, we spoke about this just a month ago. Remember, we spoke about it in relation to this situation. This is how you behaved. And I explained to you, this was the impact of doing it or not doing it. Please, going forward, this is going to be an issue for us if it is not corrected, right? So you need to be able to call everyone back to order. Everyone, this is how we are going to use this system. This is why we're going to use this system. This is how I expect you to use the system. Those of you that are struggling, reach out to me. Those of you that are not doing it, it will be reinforced consistently. But remember not to fall into the trap of setting systems that you yourself are not following. I've done that in the beginning, right? Where I'd set out, monday.com, here we go. This is where I need you to update stuff. This is where I need you. And then before you know it, I'm the one that's not using it. I'm the one 3 days in that's asking them, where's this? Where's that? And say, but I updated on Monday. Did you check Monday? It's on Monday. I did say on Monday, I asked you, you said I must ask and I must give you an update on Monday. Oh, yeah. Okay. Now I'm going back. The more I did not go into it, the more they stopped using the system. So make sure as well that if you are going to reinforce systems and processes, it's something you are using, and pick it up early when they are not using the systems you want them to, and have the conversation.